Pay close attention to this footage, because hidden inside it are two disturbing secrets investigators didn't fully understand for nearly 3 decades. It's the summer of 1995 at a Little League baseball field in Alma, Arkansas. Families fill the bleachers. The game runs late into the night, and among the crowd sits a mother named Colleen Nick beside her 6-year-old daughter, Morgan. At first, nothing feels unusual. Children laugh, parents watch from the stands. But within minutes, this ordinary home video becomes one of the most haunting pieces of evidence in a missing child case that would span generations. Look closely behind the fence line. A small figure runs toward the parking lot to play with friends. And somewhere in the background, barely noticed at the time, sits a red pickup truck with a white camper shell. That truck did not belong to any parent at the game. And just moments after this footage was recorded, Morgan Nick disappeared. For nearly 29 years, investigators searched for answers. Who was driving that truck? Why was it there? And how could a child vanish from a crowded baseball field without anyone seeing what happened? The truth, it seems, may have been hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone to look at this footage one more time. Alma, Arkansas, June 9th, 1995. Long before the mystery, before the headlines and search parties, it was just an ordinary summer evening for a young mother and her 6-year-old daughter. Inside their home, Colleen Nick helped Morgan get ready for a Little League baseball game across town. It was meant to be a simple night together, just the two of them, while Morgan's younger siblings stayed over at their grandmother's house. Morgan was known as a quiet child, a little shy around new people, but deeply playful with those she trusted. She loved small jokes, simple games, and the kind of laughter that filled a room without warning. Before leaving, Colleen made dinner, grilled cheese sandwiches, Morgan's favorite. It was a small moment that would later stay frozen in her memory. Morgan even asked for another sandwich, but with the game about to start, there wasn't enough time. Nothing about that evening felt unusual. There were no warnings, no sense that this routine night would soon become one of the most well-known missing child cases in the country. As the sun began to set over Alma, Colleen and Morgan headed toward the baseball field, unaware that the ordinary moments they were sharing would soon become the last normal memories before everything changed. As the game stretches later into the night, the energy in the stands begins to change. Children grow restless, climbing down from the bleachers and running behind the field to play in the warm summer air. At one point, 2 kids approach Morgan and ask if she wants to come with them to catch fireflies near the parking lot. At first, she stays close to her mother, content to sit and laugh beside her. But around 10:30 p.m., the children return and ask again. This time, Morgan turns to Colleen for permission. Colleen hesitates. The field is dimly lit, and something doesn't feel quite right. For a moment, she considers saying no, but other parents nearby reassure her that the area is safe, that kids have been playing there all evening, and the double fence makes it easy to see everything happening outside the stands. After a pause, Colleen gives in. Morgan's face lights up. She wraps her arms around her mother's neck, gives her a quick kiss on the cheek, and climbs down from the bleachers to follow the other children toward the parking lot. From her seat, Colleen watches as her daughter walks away, still visible between the rows of cars. It is a small decision, one that feels ordinary in the moment, but it becomes the point of no return. Within minutes, the night at the Little League field will change forever. By 10:40 p.m., the game finally comes to an end. Parents begin gathering their things, calling their children back from the parking lot. Colleen looks up, expecting to see Morgan returning with the other kids. But she isn't there. At first, it feels like a simple misunderstanding. Maybe Morgan stopped to look at something. Maybe she's just a few steps behind. Then the 2 children she left with come back alone. That's when panic sets in. Colleen rushes down from the bleachers, searching between rows of cars, calling Morgan's name into the darkness. Other parents quickly join in, spreading out across the lot, looking under vehicles and along the fence line. Within minutes, someone calls the police. When officers arrive, they speak with the two kids who had been playing with Morgan. They describe seeing a man standing near a truck, watching them from the parking lot. The vehicle catches investigators' attention. Immediately, a red pickup truck with a white camper shell. According to the children, the man stayed close to his vehicle, observing quietly as they played. And sometime in the brief moments after the kids walked away, Morgan vanished. The search shifts from confusion to urgency. Officers begin securing the scene, and word spreads quickly across Alma that a child has disappeared from a crowded Little League field, without anyone seeing exactly how it happened. Within hours, the Little League field transforms into an active crime scene. Officers seal off the parking lot with a yellow tape while search teams move through nearby streets, calling Morgan's name into the night. Investigators quickly focus on the description given by the two children: a white male with a scruffy beard, standing beside a red pickup truck fitted with a white camper shell. With time working against them, law enforcement begins coordinating with state police and federal agents, hoping to locate the vehicle before it disappears for good. The next morning, Jessica and Ty sit down with investigators to help create a composite sketch of the man they saw. That image is sent to news stations across Arkansas, and within hours, Morgan's face and the suspect description begin appearing on televisions across the country. Media coverage grows rapidly. Reporters gather outside the police station, while volunteers from the community organize search parties, passing out flyers and knocking on doors. What began as a local emergency quickly becomes a statewide effort to bring a missing child home. At the center of the investigation is the red pickup truck, now considered the most important lead. Detectives analyze every tip, every sighting, and every piece of footage that might reveal where it came from or where it went after Morgan disappeared. Amid the urgency, Colleen Nick finds herself pulled into the spotlight, speaking to cameras while holding onto hope. She describes her daughter as shy and gentle, insisting that Morgan would never wander away on her own. Behind the investigative strategy and growing media attention, a mother's voice becomes a constant reminder of what is truly at stake. And as the search expands, one question begins to echo through the community. Who was the man in the red truck, and why was he at the baseball field that night? As tips begin pouring in from across Arkansas, investigators believe they may be closing in on the man behind the red pickup truck, but almost immediately the case becomes tangled in confusion. Some witnesses insist the vehicle looks like a Ford. Others are certain it resembles an older Chevrolet. The difference seems small, but it sends officers down competing investigative paths. And with every passing day, the uncertainty grows. Reports of similar trucks begin flooding police lines. Drivers are stopped, questioned, and released. Each lead brings a surge of hope, only to fade when the details don't match. Then, nearly 2 weeks after Morgan disappears, a man in Stuttgart claims he has seen a young girl matching her description in a wooded area miles away. Search teams rush to the location. Colleen and her family wait anxiously, believing the nightmare may finally be over. But the sighting turns out to be false. The tipster later admits he fabricated the story, leaving investigators frustrated and a grieving mother heartbroken once again. As weeks turn into months, more names surface. Potential suspects, strangers spotted near playgrounds, individuals whose vehicles resemble the one described by witnesses. Each lead feels promising at first, yet none bring investigators closer to Morgan. The investigation enters a painful rhythm. Hope followed by disappointment, momentum followed by silence. And with every dead end, the mystery surrounding the red truck only deepens, leaving one haunting question unanswered. Was the most important clue already overlooked? As weeks turn into months, and months slowly become years, the search for Morgan Nick begins to change. What started as an urgent investigation grows into something far larger, a story followed not just in Arkansas, but across the nation. Colleen Nick refuses to let her daughter's name fade from public memory. Determined to protect other children, she creates the Morgan Nick Foundation, turning personal loss into a mission focused on safety and prevention. National media outlets continue to revisit the case. Morgan's photograph appears on flyers, billboards, and television broadcasts, keeping her story alive long after many missing person investigations would have gone quiet. With every interview, Colleen speaks not only as a grieving mother, but as an advocate pushing for change. Her efforts eventually reach Washington, D.C., where she joins other families calling for stronger protections for missing children. New awareness campaigns and policy discussions begin to emerge, driven by voices like hers, parents who refuse to stop searching. But despite the growing attention and the expanding movement around child safety, one painful reality remains unchanged. Years pass without answers. Investigative momentum slows, leads grow colder, and the mystery surrounding the red pickup truck lingers in the background, unresolved. For many, the case becomes a symbol of uncertainty. For Colleen, it becomes a lifelong promise, a commitment to keep fighting, even when hope feels distant. What began as a single night at a Little League field is no longer just a missing child case. It has become a mother's mission, one that will continue to shape the investigation for decades to come. Nearly 5 years after Morgan Nick vanished, a new development briefly reignites hope for investigators and the community searching for answers. Just miles from the Little League field, police arrest a man named Charles Ray Vines after a violent crime involving a young girl. As detectives begin reviewing his background, they notice a troubling pattern. Several of his offenses occur within the same small radius where Morgan disappeared. For a moment, it feels like the investigation may finally be turning a corner. Investigators collect DNA samples from Vines and compare them to evidence from multiple crime scenes across the region. The similarities raise questions, and his name quickly moves onto the list of potential suspects connected to Morgan's case. Behind the scenes, detectives ask him about several unsolved investigations, hoping for a confession that might bring long-awaited closure. But that breakthrough never comes. Despite the geographic links and growing suspicion, there is no physical evidence tying Vines directly to Morgan's disappearance. Without proof, the theory begins to fade, and the case returns to uncertainty once again. What first felt like progress becomes another painful reminder of how difficult the search for answers has become. A surge of hope that ultimately leads back to the same unanswered questions that have lingered for years. In 2019, more than 2 decades after Morgan Nick disappeared, the investigation enters a new chapter. A fresh set of eyes begins reviewing the case. Detective Brett Hartley, assigned as Alma's lead investigator, determined to revisit every detail from June 9, 1995. Hartley starts where many cold case reviews begin, with witness statements that had long been filed away. As he studies the reports, one detail stands out again and again: sightings of a red pickup truck with a white camper moving through Alma on the same day Morgan vanished. Instead of looking at each sighting separately, Hartley begins mapping them together. When the locations are placed side by side, a pattern starts to emerge. A clear path tracing the truck's movements through town. Witnesses describe similar encounters: a driver approaching teenagers, slowing near children playing outside their homes, and eventually heading toward the Little League field. What once seemed like scattered tips suddenly forms a timeline. The narrative of the case shifts from years of emotional endurance into something more analytical, a puzzle waiting to be solved. Investigators no longer focus only on the loss and uncertainty. They begin rebuilding the movements of a suspect who may have been hiding in plain sight all along. And as Hartley continues digging through old evidence, one name from the past begins to surface again, connected not just to the truck, but to a trail of encounters leading directly to the night Morgan disappeared. As Detective Hartley continues re-examining the case, one name from the original investigation begins to stand out more than any other: Billy Jack Lynx. In the months following Morgan's disappearance back in 1995, Lynx had already drawn the attention of law enforcement after attempting to lure an 11-year-old girl into his vehicle just miles away from Alma. Witnesses described the same detail that had haunted the investigation from the very beginning: a red pickup truck, once fitted with a white camper shell. At the time, investigators searched Lynx's vehicle and recovered several disturbing items, including rope, duct tape, and other materials that raised serious concerns. Hair fibers and traces of blood were also collected, but in the mid-1990s, DNA technology was still limited. Without definitive results, the evidence could not connect him directly to Morgan's case. Lynx was questioned, given a polygraph examination, and ultimately cleared as a suspect. For years, his name faded into the background of the investigation. Another lead that seemed to go nowhere. But as Hartley compares witness timelines with historical records, the similarities become impossible to ignore. The truck described by children at the baseball field, the vehicle seen moving through Alma earlier that day, and the red pickup linked to Lynx begin to align with unsettling precision. The mystery introduced in the opening footage, the unidentified truck parked quietly in the background, now circles back to a man investigators once looked at, but may not have fully understood. What was once dismissed as an inconclusive lead starts to feel like a missing piece of the puzzle, one that had been waiting decades to be seen clearly. Nearly 3 decades after Morgan Nick vanished, the investigation reaches a turning point no one could have imagined in 1995. Detective Hartley and his team finally locate the red pickup truck connected to Billy Jack Lynx, not abandoned or destroyed, but sitting quietly in a private owner's possession after years of changing hands. For the first time since the original investigation, the vehicle is carefully re-examined using modern forensic methods. As investigators process the interior, they uncover a critical piece of trace evidence hidden beneath the flooring: a single strand of blonde hair. The discovery sends the case into a new phase. Unlike the limited testing available decades earlier, advances in forensic science now offer investigators a chance to revisit evidence that once seemed impossible to analyze. The hair is sent to Othram Labs, a company known for applying advanced DNA techniques to long unsolved cases. Months pass as scientists work to extract genetic information from the fragile sample, a process that represents the investigation's most promising opportunity in years. In September of 2024, the results finally arrive. The report indicates that the hair found inside Lynx's truck is genetically linked to Colleen Nick's family, strongly suggesting that Morgan had been inside the vehicle. For investigators, the finding brings the long-standing mystery of the red truck full circle. The vehicle seen in old footage, described by witnesses, and debated for decades, is no longer just a theory. It becomes the strongest physical connection yet to the night Morgan disappeared. After 29 years of uncertainty, science delivers a breakthrough that reshapes the case and confirms what many had feared: that the answer may have been hidden in plain sight all along. Even with the breakthrough in 2024, the story of Morgan Nick does not end with a traditional resolution. There are still unanswered questions, details that remain hidden in the silence left behind by time. But while the investigation continues, Colleen Nick has transformed unimaginable loss into a lasting mission. Through decades of advocacy, she has worked to improve child safety across the country, helping create programs designed to respond faster when children go missing. One of those efforts, the Child Abduction Response Team, known as CART, now brings trained specialists together within hours of an emergency, helping recover children who might otherwise have been lost. What began as a mother's fight for her own daughter has grown into a system that protects countless families. Over the years, one image has remained closely tied to Morgan's memory: fireflies. The small lights that once drew her away from the bleachers have come to symbolize something different, a reminder that even in darkness, hope can still be seen. Colleen continues to speak publicly, encouraging communities to stay aware, to protect one another, and to never stop searching for answers, even when the path forward feels uncertain. Morgan's story is not just about a mystery that spanned nearly 30 years. It is about resilience, advocacy, and the belief that a single voice, refusing to be silent, can create change far beyond one night at a Little League field. And while the case remains open, the legacy left behind shines like those fireflies, small lights guiding others through the dark, carrying forward a promise that Morgan will never be forgotten.